Hello, beautiful souls. Rochelle here, your host of Sovereign Heart. I am here with Allison, who has been a business owner for well over 20 years, helping healers grow their businesses and wealth with targeted manifestation so they can make a larger impact on this planet. And I'm really excited to pick her brain about those very specific things because she's got an amazing story to share with all of you that you're likely going to want to take notes on and also really truly feel the frequency of this conversation as you're listening to know what's possible for you in your future. So welcome here, Allison.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I think that today is going to be an epic conversation. I'm just honored to be here and excited to do this with you.
Yeah, we were talking just before we hit record about divine timing of everything because there's been a few things, hiccups along the way for us to really get this chat going. So the divine timing will ultimately be about the story that you're about to share. But before we get into that, why don't you share with the audience a little bit about your story and what you do and kind of your mission in life to help others?
Yeah, thanks. So I am a quantum manifestation coach, a human design coach, and a business coach, all rolled into one. My mission is really to serve new paradigm medical professionals so that they can grow their businesses and their wealth in a very aligned way, based on their own energetics, so that they can make a larger impact on the world. My journey has brought me here. It's been very interesting, and it entails long health battles and all kinds of struggles. And it's just really an honor to be in such a beautiful, aligned space to be able to give back in this way to the leaders and the healers who give us so much. So
Yeah, so
it's a joy.
important. Yes, so important for you to help those people step more into the leadership, but also that you have that sort of multidimensional,
Mhm.
multimodality way of seeing and supporting your clients as well, I think is so important in today's day and age too. So I'm excited for you to share your wisdom and your expertise, but I want to get into the juice because you said you had a really powerful shift that happened for you in this last week. So let's get into it. What was the big download, the big awareness that came through?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that if your audience have been studying manifestation in any kind of way or playing around with it or just exploring it, um, you've noticed that like there's lessons that keep coming up for you to embody and kind of master before you move on. And being that we are in the middle of a pretty significant eclipse season,
Hmm.
I was feeling a lot of these energies of like, oh wow, these lessons are coming up again and again and again and again. And for me, it was a little infuriating because I could see the lessons, I could feel them, specifically around money, and I was actually getting very frustrated because a big part of what I do is money manifestation, and I'm like, I know how to manifest money. And
Hmm.
it was all there, is all around me. I even had clients that um had told me like I'm in, but there were delays. There were delays in bank transfers. There were delays with this, there were delays with that. And I finally one day was like, this is actually not a lesson. This is my identity.
Ooh.
This is my identity. And so I had to shed my entire identity. And once I saw it, it, it only took about 24 hours total. And once it was complete, literally within 20 minutes, I had $10,000 in my bank account, cash. Another hour later, I had another client who is on a monthly payment plan. She's like, can I just pay off my whole contract like today? Can
Wow.
you just send me the link?
Wow.
And I had been trying to sell my physical office space because I'm becoming more and more mobile. Um, I've been trying to sell that for months, 6 months. And within 5 minutes of this identity shed, I had a buyer. I actually had two buyers. One person took the one that I'm in right now, and another person took the one next door. And um, I can't even remember what else. Oh, I had an aligned community that just like popped up for me out of in 12 hours. So like literally overnight, all of the things that I had been consciously working on manifesting for months, it they locked in overnight. And it was
Wow.
because of the shedding of an identity.
Interesting. So to back up a little bit, I would love to hear maybe the contrast between what was stuck prior and this shift in identity, and maybe, explain it in the simplest of terms as far as like what you were doing to manifest money for your clients that wasn't working for you and how that became your identity, to then also I'd love to hear what this new identity is that you're embodying as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny because one of my previous mentors, who I love and adore, her name is Elizabeth Ralph. She's the spiritual investor. And she says something all the time that just makes so much sense to me. She said, it's really hard to read the label from inside the jar. And
Mm,
that really sums up kind of what was going on with me, because here I am. I mean, my coach calls me the quantum queen. She's like, you can manifest anything. And she spent a year with me witnessing this. And like, I know that about me. And so when my own manifestations were getting gunked up, I was like, what is going on? So it was the contrast that you're asking about is like, I was in this space of like, some kind of a funky, like something's going on, but I don't really know what headspace,
mm,
because being that self-aware and knowing like I know that I know what to do. And even my clients are just like killing it and blowing it out of the water. And here I am, achieving this next up level. And I knew, right, because this is what I do, I did know that I would
yeah.
succeed.
Yeah.
And so I was holding that vision. But I tell you what, every piece of evidence in the 3D was telling me like you're gearing up for the most epic failure of your whole life. And as a single mom of 3 kids, that was not something that was fun to look at.
That's
Um,
terrifying too, to sit with that feeling. And then also you're supposed to hold the vision of what's
yeah,
coming, but still you're like, your brain's like, survive, survive,
yeah,
survive.
yeah, yeah. So to answer the second part of your question, while I was holding that vision and really like I kept showing up literally every day with pristine energy. And yes, I'm human. Like, yes, there was fear, and we get to hold that dichotomy and that dual nature that we embody. Um, but really, like I've been working on my energetics very consciously for over a decade, maybe even longer, but as a martial artist for almost a decade. So I know when my energy is really clean. And there was nothing wrong with my energy. And there was
Mm,
nothing wrong with my strategy. And there was
interesting.
nothing wrong with my money management.
Huh.
Like every single thing was being checked off. And it was this aha moment. It was like, oh shit, this is my identity. The old identity was that I had to overcome obstacles.
Mm.
I had to struggle.
Oh my gosh. So many people can relate to that. I can definitely relate to that too. Um, which I think is an interesting thing because, and I want to elaborate on this, but my brain in it instantly goes, again, there's a conditional piece around what you're in, that worthiness piece and that who am I piece, what you're talking about. So yeah, that I have to go through the struggle and that's who I am. That's in a way, that's like the hero's journey or the heroine's story of like, I've conquered it all and I've been through it all, which means it can't come easy then.
Right, right.
There's a block to the ease there. So continue.
Yeah, exactly right. And so there's some ego wrapped up in that. We all have ego. Ego's not our enemy. I call it our
Yeah.
friendly.
Yeah.
Um, it serves us really well in this dual reality that we live in. Um, but there was a piece of ego in there that was like, haha, look what I've overcome. And then it's just like, you know what? This is really old. I really don't want to have to keep struggling every time that I want to up level, every time that I want to believe that there's more, that I'm worthy of more. And I know that you know some about, maybe you know a lot about human design. I have an open ego center,
Me too.
and yeah, and an open G center, like an open identity center. So a lot of
Yeah.
conditioning can get in
Yep.
there,
Yep.
right?
Big time.
Um, so, so yeah, so a lot of work around that, probably for years actually.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the background of that. So that's when I was like, I was just looking around, like, I know that I'm worth, I know my
Yeah.
worth by
Yeah.
now. But your identity is like when you see the lessons just coming over and over and over and over and over, that's not a lesson. That is literally your identity. The frequency that
Mm.
you are embodying is what is attracting that and pulling that out of the quantum field. And that's what's being shown to you routinely. So, like, I really had to look at that and say, am I ready to let go of the identity that I'm a struggling single mom of 3 kids?
Yeah.
Am I willing to stop attaching this need of being seen and recognized as a strong, independent woman, or can I just let everything be really easy?
Yeah. What I really resonate with what you're sharing, especially with the open ego. I have an undefined G as well,
Mhm.
but wide open ego. So I very much resonate with this question often of like the who am I? And I
Mhm.
never, similarly to you, often it came around a question, and I'm sure listeners here too, of like a worthiness piece, but I was like, that doesn't resonate with me. Like, I know I'm the shit. I know I can
Yeah.
do it. I know I'm
Yeah.
capable. So it wasn't really a worthiness piece, but I'm really, vibing with this identity component because I think that's a layer that a lot of people haven't really been able to look at or see within themselves, and realize that this is in a way, the clothes that we're choosing to wear on the outside, which the universe is then showing us, well, this is your story and this is your proclamation, then this is what you're shown.
Right. Right.
And how did you so this awareness is all fine and good. It clicks in the brain. Aha, I have an identity shift. But how did you shift your frequency and the energetics behind I stepping into, and I'd love for you to also proclaim this new identity and like say it out loud because I think that's super powerful to verbalize it. But how did
Mhm.
you do the practical behind the scenes for yourself?
Yeah. A few things. I really listened to my intuitive body, and to put that in more like 3D terms, I got really radically unapologetic with my schedule.
Mm,
Um, and so if I needed to take a nap as these things were happening and these awarenesses were coming up, I stopped everything. I put the work away. I cleared everything and I would take a nap.
wow.
Um, if I needed to drive in the mountains and blast my music, I'd drive in the mountains and blast my music. There was about a 24-hour period where I cried a lot, a
Mm,
whole lot, because part of this whole identity shedding is we need to honor what was.
mm-hmm.
Like there was a component of me that was a total badass and like really overcame mountains and mountains of very dark, very difficult things. And
Yeah.
so honoring her and letting her pass away with dignity, and not bypassing what that was, it really served me these first 40 years of my existence here. Um, so a lot of like really practical things, crying,
Mm-hmm.
napping, a lot of journaling, to help kind of to help my awareness, come from different perspectives here and there. And I also did EFT, and I didn't even do it with scripts or anything. I do have 3 teenagers, and so I do spend a lot of time in my car if I'm not, coaching and or doing whatever else I want to do. And so literally in my car, I would just take one hand and just tap my collarbone and say
Yeah.
things along the lines of, you know, I've I've believed that I've had to struggle, and that is no longer in alignment with me.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I've believed that, I love and accept who I am now. and I'm ready to release that and let that go. And honestly, like this truth is twofold. What I'm about to say, there's always a contradiction I find in this existence on earth, really,
Mhm.
um, is that a frequency shift happens in a moment, and it is instantaneous, and it can take months or years of leading up to that moment. So it's both and,
Yeah.
but it really is possible to completely change one's frequency in a moment. And that is all it took. It was on my way down from my house, on the 20-minute commute to my office, that I released all of that. And 5 minutes later, my whole life literally changed. I'm celebrating my first 60K month. I have international things happening that I can't talk about yet, because there's still information, but like literally everything about my life changed in just a few minutes after that
Wow.
shift.
Wow. You know, and I really want people to listen to this and not let their brain go, that's great for her, but not possible for me, because I
Exactly.
know that that inner protector in our minds is going to be real loud listening to this. And it takes, and this is where I want to ask you a bit of what brought you to this place,
Mhm.
but recognizing the patterns of the doubt and recognizing the patterns of the protector part of self coming up as you're hearing what's possible. Because I think a lot of folks get scared in the possibility and so they retract back. And I would
Yes.
love to ask you, Allison, you've been doing this work for 20 years. What are some of your go-to strategies to keep that faith, keep that inner resilience from a not from a struggle forceful place, but from this like anything's possible place? And also stay with the vision, because I think sometimes, at least I know even for myself, it's like when the wobble comes in, it's hard not to label that wobble as something and then again identify with the wobble as this is where I'm at now. So what are your sort of like no way, shape, or form, I'm never gonna do this, and whether you're like some of your like, I must do this on a regular basis to keep me in the, for lack of a better term, discipline of managing my energy and frequency.
Such a good question. Two things come to mind for me that work very, very well for me. Well, now three. There's three. Number one, journaling. I swear by journaling. The joke between my coach and I think I started that joke like 6 months ago. I was like, I'm going to journal my way to my first $1 million, and
Mm,
it works. Um, because, and I'll kind of unpack that here in
yeah.
just a moment. Number two, some sort of embodiment practice with exercise and breath. It needs to, from my point of view, it needs to incorporate both a good workout and breath work of some sort. That I love martial arts for this, but it could be literally anything. Yoga is great. Anything, even running or walking, anything that where you can bring your awareness to your breath, but also
Mhm.
moving your body at the same time, because we are
Mhm.
created to be dynamic beings. That helps the energy not get stuck.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is, as a woman, particularly, speaking my truth
Mm.
and not holding back, no matter what, and really being unapologetically who I am, in the moment. Um, so I said I was going to unpack the journaling thing. I was hoping my brain would remember it.
Let me ask you a question in regards to the journaling thing, because a lot of people, I've heard a lot of theories that people are journaling wrong. They either, this is what I did today. This is all the shitty,
Oh,
terrible
thank
things that
you.
didn't work. These are the things I'm going to complain about and vent
Yes,
about in my journal. And I don't imagine that that's the style that you're doing.
absolutely not. And it's a great question. It does jog my memory. So part of where I came from, part of my journey was heavy brainwashing from a cult
Mm,
perspective. I have a biblical studies degree. I have a bachelor's of science degree in biblical studies, and I was very, very heavily involved in the Southern Baptist denomination and a really fundamentalist sect of the Christian church. So all that to say, I realized one day, I think it was in 2018 or 19, that I had been brainwashed very heavily. And that basically every single thought that I had every single day had a frequency of fear or shame or guilt attached to it. And so that realization in and of itself could have been extremely discouraging. But I think we keep freezing. Are we back?
We're back.
Okay. Sorry, the internet connection, I think, got a little wonky. Okay, cool. So the realization that I had been brainwashed was like, you know what? I can brainwash me though. And that is how I use my journaling practice. If I am not believing that I am making $100,000 a month, and side note, it's never about the money for me. It is about the level of global impact I can make. I just know that money really helps make that happen a lot faster. So that's why I like to manifest money. But if I'm not believing that I make 100K a month, I am journaling things about that, about the kind of person that I need to become to do that. So if there's something about me, for a long time, I was working on my relationship beliefs because I was in and out of these really toxic, like on again, off again, hot and cold relationships. And I would journal about my self-worth, even if I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
That's the key. Even if you don't believe it, you write it down and you speak it out loud. I don't care if you sound crazy. If your mind or your ego thinks that you sound crazy, you do this. I mean, I could show you pictures of my mirror. I have like marker, dry erase marker, like I am, and then painting the mirror with who I am and who I want to embody. Right.
I love that.
So, because then that gives the mind something to focus on, and what we think really does come to be. Does that answer your question?
It does. And it spurs on another question that I've always been curious about. And I've heard multiple different schools of thought with this is, um, if the thought or if the feeling isn't there with the thought that you're trying to, let's say, implant intentionally into the brain, at what point is the soul or even our emotional self going like lying, 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 as opposed to, oh, this is possible. Oh, this is possible. Like, is there just a point when it transitions into that, and we just ignore the first part? Or what are your thoughts on this? Because to give a bit of backstory there, I remember the first time years ago I came across Louise Hay when I was going through my divorce. And I was listening and I was like, this is bullshit. I can't say those things out loud. I don't believe a word she's saying. My life is miserable and it's upside down right now. And there's no way that I can say that and be speaking truth. Like, I don't believe it. And so my mind was like, are these actually helpful right now if every part of me is rebelling against what I'm saying? So how do you find that happy medium or that jump between I want this, but then there's your brain again telling you not going to happen, not going to happen, or you're lying, you're lying. What do you say to that? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
That is an amazing question. You have the best questions. So that is the ego mind protesting change.
Yeah.
And it's cloaking it in a way of saying, well, you're not in your integrity by saying this because it's not true. My truth is that you are creating reality when you speak. You are creating reality. So when that protest comes up, it's like, okay, I hear you. And maybe I'm not feeling it today. Maybe I'm not feeling it this week. When I look at my manifestation journal, I can tell you there are months at a time that I haven't been feeling it. And I don't care. I don't give a shit because I know that if I want to create it, I must proclaim it and declare it, because I am the creator of my
Right.
reality.
This is, I
So
think, that piece that people don't want to actually own. Because if
yes.
they recognize that they create their reality, that means they have to take responsibility
Yep.
for their
Yep.
life. And then every part of that, again, that ego or that part of self that's like, I'd rather blame blah, blah, blah on why I'm not here, or justify a reason as to why. And sometimes this is the hit that's coming for me. So clearly my listeners, and perhaps you can speak to this too. Um, Sometimes there's not a block. Sometimes it's just a practice and a discipline that needs to be implemented, rather than thinking there's something wrong with you that you need to understand, or you need to know why this block is here. You don't need to know why you're stuck. You don't, at least that's my theory. You don't need to know why you're stuck. You just need to recognize what that feels like and then do the thing you need to do, the routine you need to do to get onto the other side of that. And sometimes I think a lot of us, especially in today's society, are like, I want instant gratification, as opposed to, I don't want to do the thing that's gonna get me long-term results. I just want it now. So I don't want to be disciplined in my spiritual practice. I don't want to be disciplined in my manifestation practice. I don't want to be disciplined in how I choose to feel every day. I'd rather just be numb, which isn't
Yes.
really the reality. Most people don't want that. That's why there's an incongruency, but that's, again, that perhaps ego. That's also just that part of self that's like trying to protect and go like, change is coming. Do you want it or not?
I would say don't get into the manifestation game if you're not willing to feel a lot of
Yeah.
sacred ego death.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It it will reveal everything. It will reveal everything. I mean, I remember a time, because I was just going back over my journal yesterday, and there was a time that I had negative $681 in my bank account. And by logical, like, the mind would have said, this is the time that you close shop
Yeah.
and you give up and you go to a 9 to 5 to provide for your children. Do you know what I did? Not that.
No.
and now and now it's like on the other side of that like really tough constricting place that we all get to on this journey called ascension, or whatever we want to call it. On the other side of that breakthrough is like something more incredible and amazing than we could possibly conceive of in that moment.
Yeah. I think that's something to really remind ourselves. And again, I am listing on the behalf of my listener, and I'm like, I really want to pick your brain on debt and this concept of debt,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
when our brain sees the literal negative $600 in my bank account, I'm like, well, that is proof that I'm not successful. And so again, if you were to speak to, or perhaps even if you recall, but if you were to speak to that part of self that was back there, negative 600 in the bank account, and you were your coach, what
Mhm.
would you tell that person that's like, but scarcity is real, and I'm scared that I won't be able to pay my bills, and I don't know how to do what's next, even though I have a big mission and I do want to, change the frequency of this planet. I'm feeling like a bit of fear coming up, seeing what's there, and also to tag team to that, so you can elaborate on this, is just the concept of debt in general, because I think there's a lot of conditioning around the language that we use, around how we use money, and
Yeah.
what's debt. I keep saying the word debt because that's just the word that people use, but how do we invest and spend and know what's the right choices to
Yeah.
make?
Yeah.
Can you riff on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was really interesting. I'm grateful that I went through those lessons, because it really shifted my perspective to all the things that you just talked about. That particular set of circumstances was the perfect storm, where I was offboarding I think all but one-on-one client at the same time, like within a matter of weeks. My whole income was going at the same
Wow.
time. This was all part of a huge up level that I was going through. And also my ex-spouse was not paying child support, was months behind. And I had been paying, footing the bills for dental work for my children and for this and for that. And it just all came at once.
Wow.
And it was a huge instructional lesson for me. The thing with debt, and I think this really speaks specifically to women in particular, is that we have all these beliefs that we're not good with money or that we don't understand what to do with it. And this was a lot of the identity thing that I had to let go of too, which was really like money. It's so much more than a resource, and the energy that it carries with it is the way I see it is it's very masculine, and it actually really wants to be there for us, but
Mm,
it doesn't want us to have this friction in the relationship of like, oh, I owe you something or you owe me something. It's like, and it doesn't want to be managed. We talk about managing money.
mm,
Money does not want to be managed. It wants to be respected. It wants to be loved and appreciated, thanked. It wants to circulate and move. It wants to grow. So all of these sectors of money, quote unquote, management, where we're talking about debt repayment or going into debt or investing or whatever, I say do it all at once. Um, the old me having a 60K month would have completely been debt free overnight. Bad money decision. No,
mm.
no. We get to dance with these frequencies in a way where we are empowered as women. Where if the debt collector is calling and saying, you owe this and la la la, it's like, I'll get to you.
Yeah.
I'll get to you. But first, my team, my kids, my
Yeah.
this, my that, serving my clients, reinvesting in my business to serve them better and more at a higher touch point. So really not giving our power away to conditional stories about what debt does to us or means about us. It doesn't mean shit. Show me one successful male in this world who has not gone into debt to start a business
Yep.
or made some kind of aligned joint venture decision where debt was involved. Debt is a resource.
Yeah.
It's a resource and it's here. And furthermore, if we wanted to go way down the rabbit hole, I don't think we have time today, but according to trust law, it's also doesn't exist. So
Yeah. I definitely want to pick your brain about that because that's a rabbit hole that I've started to go into myself because I just also feel like the frequency of what we've been taught about what money is to keep us in fear and scarcity. It's not to keep us
absolutely.
in expansion and growth. And I also don't think we earn money as women the same way that the masculine earns money. And the same time, we can look to them as inspiration, especially for that kind of audacious, like bold, big transactions where they're just like hold the big vision. And I think a lot of women sometimes conscious or not, have been conditioned to be nice and play small and be adaptable. And you can be a mom and have it all. Like Allison right now. You can like there's no limit, but I think we as women want to put caps on, well, this is my dream right now, or this is my focus right now. And it's like I'm of the belief, because I speak a lot to feminine energy as well, of you have to feel what your frequency is like and what it feels the best as what your feminine energy is an expression of. And some women do want to be the badass CEO, and that does not make you less feminine. That just means you're going to operate from a feminine perspective as a badass CEO. And some women want to be the CEO and the mom. okay, great, do it, right? And I think the other piece to speak to from putting in a practical lens is, can we then expand our capacity to be able to do all the things that we want to? Because the biggest thing that I've noticed, and perhaps you have too, is if my body is not on board,
Yeah.
I'm not capable of doing those things. And you mentioned like naps and like car drives were, and to me those are two nervous system, well, driving for some is not dysregulated or not regulating, but it can be if
Yeah.
you're going on a calm drive. But two things to really also take care of your physical body, balancing rest between
Yeah.
the exercise so that again your body is like, I'm ready to receive. I'm ready to step in more into the spotlight. I'm ready to hold a higher frequency. And
Mhm.
perhaps these are also great mantras or affirmations to say to yourself, I'm ready to receive. I'm ready to hold a higher frequency. I'm ready to bring in more in my bank account. I can't even imagine what's possible of what I could hold in my bank account. Maybe it's 100,000, maybe it's 200,000, right? And saying these things and playing with how they feel in our body, because this just clicked for me, is when we start doing the practice of teaching our brain and talking through it, I think the body will catch up. And I
Yes.
think the body starts going like, "Oh, that's not as scary anymore. Like, it's not as bad and far away anymore. Like, maybe that is possible." And in a way, the practice and routine of it and the discipline of it, which is that masculine in ourselves too, of like that devotion to our growth, balances and grounds the body that's like, and I'm scared to expand, but here we are doing it anyways.
Right. That's where quantum leaps will happen, but then they won't stick.
Yeah.
And the mind and the soul and everything's on board, but the body hasn't had a chance to really catch up. And I think sometimes the body really can release and step into the new identity in a moment. And to hold that, that's where those practices come in.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, if we want the quantum leaps to stick. So like visualize, like I love meditating, even if it's just 10 minutes when I'm waking up, 10 to 20 minutes when I'm waking up, 10 to 20 minutes when I go to bed. If I have space in my day, which I often do, I'll meditate for 20 minutes. It just feels so good to me. Now, 10 years ago, if you would have told me that, I'd be like, I would rather like rip my fingernails than lay there and meditate for 20 minutes. But um, something I would say to your listeners is like, if there's some sort of friction with receiving more money in particular, then stop thinking about money.
Yeah.
Feel into and visualize what that would give you, right? Like, what would that afford you?
Yes.
So I know what that looks like for me. It looks different for everybody. So really unapologetically get in tune and in touch with what you want. Those sacred
Mhm.
desires are your birthright.
Mhm.
And I would say that they have a price tag attached to them.
Mhm.
So however many zeros or not are attached to that, like let's get you manifesting that so that you have your sacred desires. That's what you're destined for. That's what you're meant for.
And when you say that too, I think it's also bringing in the feeling attached to having that experience or that goal be the reality. And something fascinating that I personally have practiced myself is um remembering a feeling of gratitude, because I've felt it in multiple different areas in my life. So why is it different now? Like my cells remember what that feeling feels like. My cellular body knows what love feels like. My cellular body knows what joy feels like. So if you're like, well, I can't grasp that feeling of utter liberation, for example, maybe your body can grasp a feeling of pleasure, or maybe your body can grasp a feeling of contentment, or maybe it's first calm. And we work our way up to those elevated states of emotion. And also remembering that, like, it's not like I've never had that thing with that feeling, so I can't go there. It's like, I've had immense pleasure and joy eating gelato. My
Yes.
body remembers that feeling. So why can't
Yes.
I use that same exact sensation when I'm thinking about what I want to bring into my business or thinking about the life I want to create in my relationship or whatever the thing is. Because again, if we just look at it objectively, joy, pleasure, gratitude, all feelings that I guarantee everyone has felt at least glimmers of in their life. And then you remember, your body remembers that. You just have to allow yourself to go there to remember that feeling and trust that it's coming there. And sometimes we need that contrast to like intentionally practice. There was a Joe Dispenza meditation I was doing for a while where you bring up all the feelings of having the thing and you bring it all the way up to the surface and you're like, breathe it in, it's really big. And then he goes, and then let it all go and imagine it's gone. And you're like, oh. And then you
Mm.
do it again to bring it back. So you notice that contrast of
Yeah.
how you can be so in charge of your thoughts and how you feel. And that is literally the most empowering way to really operate in this lifetime, is realizing how much you truly are in charge and you are the creator of how you want to feel and how you see this world.
Yeah. 100%. Beautifully put. Yes.
Um, I have a question, and I'm mindful of our time, but it is a very controversial question, so I'll see how you feel about it and see if we
Probably
can
just fine.
riff on it shortly. So I can't remember his name, but there's a content creator that kind of sparked some thoughts in me that I saw on TikTok. And essentially, the premise that he's speaking to is when we are focused on something that we don't have in the technique and the practice of manifestation, we're almost bringing the frequency of lack in if we're not careful, because it feels like it's a dream as opposed to reality. Now,
Yeah.
some say obviously dreams are part of your subconscious and in your reality already anyways, because you wouldn't have had the dream if it wasn't there. But
Mhm.
he's so matter of fact, like, you are the creator every moment you're creating. So it's not that it's not there. So what's the point of even focusing on quote unquote manifesting if it's already there? So
Yeah.
my sense is he's talking a bit about frequency more so, and the practical and very masculine way of approach.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and if that resonates with you at all.
I actually agree with him. And I know what he's saying. Um, but I feel that for us to learn the art of manifestation, that's actually the quickest way to get to what he's saying. I
Mhm.
actually did a podcast episode back a while ago called How the Illusion of Money is Keeping You from Making More. Because and I think when I was recording that, like my bank account was not doing so hot. That's when my ex-husband was starting to get really behind on things and my everything was starting to offboard. So, but if you listen to that episode, I am absolutely in full flow abundance
Yeah.
from that state, because you do not need anything except what you have circulating through your lungs at this very moment. That is the frequency of abundance. And so
Yeah.
you can feel into that and turn up the dial, and that will automatically start manifesting more into your 3D reality. It literally is, there's a whole lot of brain flips and twists and turns that we do in manifestation. They
Yeah.
do work. And at the end of the day, superabundance is here right now.
Yeah.
Superabundance is it is how nature and life operates. And it's only our limiting beliefs that get in the way. And so when
Mhm.
everything comes into actual true alignment with the beliefs and the gratitude and the beingness, that's when you start getting tens of thousands or whatever, hundreds of thousands, just like pinging and popping into reality from the quantum field, because it really um you're speaking the language
Yeah.
of the 3D material world in the way that that comes from the energy within. The energy within is the source of abundance.
Let's just repeat that. The energy within is the source of abundance.
Yeah.
Hear that loud and clear, folks. Like, what I just heard is the simplest manifestation practice is to be aware of your breath and say thank you every time you're able to inhale into your lungs. That
Amen.
is abundance.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's
Um, so
oh, all I was going to say is that's why you can go have a conversation with a monk who's destitute, who has everything.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think balancing out how we see abundance and how the influence of the world has on our minds, a lot of the fear around economy and budgets and yada, yada, yada,
Yeah.
can really put a limitation on what's possible and also make us not see wealth and riches in the most purest of form, really, as
Yeah.
in a creation. I am literally a creation. I'm a soul turned into a human body. Like, how magical is that? And then for the women, you literally can turn a soul into human form.
Oh
How
my God.
magical is that? Like, you literally are manifesting, taking spirit and making a child, if you choose. But like that is literally the most magical, like you can't even explain it sometimes. It's just like so miraculous.
Yes.
Um, in one or two words, I have this final question, and then I have one last one to follow up with. In one or two words, what is the frequency of money? If you were to give it a different word,
Love,
yeah, let
love.
that sink in.
Money loves you.
Yeah,
Money loves all of us. It's simply, it's simply another reflection of who we are. That's all it is. And it's always here for us.
yeah. And I think when I hear you say that, um, it's a reminder why, as cheesy as it sounds, self-love is so vital, and also mixing it in with the inner child healing, because that's our benchmark for love is our upbringing and how we related to our families. And you do not need a healthy relationship with your parents to bring in self-love now as an adult and to reparent that part of yourself and to feel that kind of love, because no matter how many hundreds of women I've supported over the years through abuse and trauma and you name it, every single one of them can name at least one person in their lifetime that showed them what love is, whether that was a coach on a sports team, whether that was a teacher, whether that was just a safe adult like that popped in their world for a season. Every single person has had a moment of that. And that might even be your bus driver who's smiling at you every single day and asking you how your day was. Like there's so many moments of love that's possible for us. And if we interchange that with money and not feel any sort of resentment or resistance towards that, like imagine what's possible.
It's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah. I've thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed this, Allison. And I know I say this often because I love all my guests that come on this show, but I genuinely do want to continue to pick your brain for a future episode or two
Be
on all
happy.
the different things that you know about, because we didn't even get into human design and embodiment and even like your skills as a business owner. So there's so many things that we can explore together. But one final question I have for you, but before I ask, was there any final words that you want to share with the audience at all, just to sum things up?
Don't ever stop believing in your dream.
Mm,
Don't ever, because
yeah,
it is possible.
yeah,
Mhm.
1000%. So my final question, and I ask everyone this, and you're more than welcome to like drop in and tune in if it feels good for you, but what is one truth from your heart that you feel the world needs to hear right now?
Oh, you already know everything.
Mm,
You know everything. We have been lied to. We've lied to ourselves, and that's not our fault. And it's our responsibility. And we get to own that the answers are within all of us. And we deserve to be supported by people and resources in our lives to help us remember that truth.
yeah. Your such a reminder, I'm sure, for every single one of your clients to remember those parts of self. It's one of my gifts as well as a coach. And I think this is the value again of working with the right people that you resonate with, that you know can help you when that ego part comes on. You need support in your corner. You're not meant to do this work alone. Even the work that Allison's describing, yes, it is such an internal journey, but to have the support of someone alongside you, believing in you when you have doubts and creeping in, because they will, or when you have resistance come up, because they will. Imagine knowing that you had someone in your corner who was like, I'm holding this vision for you. I'm holding this vision for you. This is why I really emphasize that as powerful as we are on our own, we're not islands. And especially as women, we really need community and coaches and collaborators to really hold that vision with us to make those shifts on this planet that we so desire. Because when you're holding a big vision, sometimes you need other people to hold it with you for a little while. And sometimes those other people are also part of the journey with you, to make that come into fruition. And I think one of the easiest ways, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, one of the easiest ways to shift my frequency is to be in the right room with the right people and have
100%.
conversations. And when I'm by myself in my own frequency, it's very easy to go downward spiral. But even just thinking about this conversation, I'm like feeling so jazzed and lit up just talking about this stuff. And this is why it's so important to have support in your corner. Because again, it helps you just like reset and remember and recalibrate and go like, oh, okay, nope, nope, bring back the barometer, and this is the frequency coming back, coming back, coming back.
Yes. I I swear, Rochelle, like that what has been my strategy from day one. Get
Yeah,
in the right room with the right people and learn from them and just be in their energy. And I think that was the difference from me taking 10 years to celebrate my first 60K month versus 16 months,
yeah,
in a new business. It's just when you are I see us humans kind of like a symbiotic organism. I have a very biological mind. And we work better together.
yeah,
We work better together.
yeah. We can't ignore frequency and aura when we go to human design and energy centers and impact.
Yeah.
It's like it's the why you notice the vibe is either good or bad when you walk in a room, and everyone has that. I don't care how spiritual or not spiritual you are, everyone can pick up on that.
Mhm.
Animals pick up on it. So again, it's such a reminder of like if I'm in the room with that person that's going to lift me up as opposed to meet me at the bottom, that is the room I want to
Mhm.
be in. I want to be in that higher frequency because that's where I start to allow my body to go like, "Oh, this is possible. Oh, this is possible. Oh, I'm seeing her doing it." And instead of comparing, "Oh, that's not me yet," I'm going, "That's possible. I'm witnessing it happen in front of me, and I'm so excited for that person's success." So,
Yes.
all that being said, I'm so excited for your success that you just like had this huge leap into the identity piece. And this is why full circle back to our divine timing, because we were supposed to meet, I think, last week and maybe the week before. And then there was like these little glitches in eclipse season that was like, not yet, not yet, not yet. And here we are now, talking about this huge leap that you went through in this last week. So talk about divine timing and being
Yeah.
inspired by people in the room. So thank you so much for being here, Allison.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
And I invite you to for sure take a note in the show notes of how you can reach out to Allison and connect. Her social media also has tons of juicy content there. So I invite you to kind of stay and connect. And also, if you resonate with any of this, you can ask me questions or check in with Allison at any point in any time through all the good stuff in the show notes.
Yeah. Sounds good. This has been a pleasure. And yeah, it's been a joy. I hope to come back and do it again.
Thank you so much again, Allison. Take care, and we'll talk soon for sure. For
Okay.
sure.
All right.